really the groundbreaking discovery of Watson and Crick to determine the double helical structure of DNA in 1953. It really is the beginning of modern molecular biology. Before we do that, and this is James Watson, the American, and his buddy Francis Crick in the basement at Cambridge University, a model of DNA. Let's remember, let's give a little basis before we look at what they accomplished here. So we've already discussed how by 1944, just so I can write 1944, Avery, MacLeod, and McCarty, and this is, we already talked about this, these three Americans, they had confirmed that the transforming particle, and this is work we talked about last Wednesday. I'll just write all this out here. Griffith was for certain DNA. So DNA is the molecule of the gene, no doubt about it. The goal now, as we enter the 1950s, is to describe the three-dimensional structure of DNA so we can understand two things. One, how is the how is the genetic information, that's the way I'm going to say it, just like I wrote it earlier. How is genetic information stored in this molecule? Okay. And secondly, so they're hoping that the structure will give scientists a clue about how it's stored. We know now, but at this time it was not clear at all. Secondly, the goal is by knowing the three-dimensional structure that they're able to understand how DNA is replicated or copied prior to cell division. Because obviously it has to be passed to future generations. Since we know since the time of Mendel that these genes, these particles, carry the instruction from parent to child. That children do resemble their parents for a reason. So how is it? So will the structure reveal how the information is stored and ultimately accessed, and how is it replicated? Now, Watson and Crick didn't discover DNA. Let's make sure we understand what they knew going into this project. Okay, I'm going to erase this part over here. Okay, so what was sort of the prior knowledge about DNA that Watson and Crick will use to understand the 3D structure, to get it right? Well, first of all, let's remember that DNA was first discovered in 1869 by a guy named Friedrich Miescher. Okay, he was extracting what he thought were proteins from white blood cells. White blood cells have a super big nucleus. What he found was something really rich in phosphorus, and proteins don't have phosphorus, so he didn't know what he had. He called it nuclein. Never knew what it was for, but he knew it was different. It was a different molecule. Okay? So its presence was known. Secondly, by around 1919, this is before my time even, believe it or not, okay? There was a guy named, what's so funny? Phoebus Levine. He was a physician, Russian-born, I believe, French-trained physician, doctor. I guess he didn't like sick people. He was mainly studied chemistry. He published over 700 papers in his lifetime. He was able to, and he was studying this nuclein, this mysterious stuff, and he was able to describe the nucleotide structure. Using very crude chemistry, he was able to determine that nucleotide has three components: sugar, phosphate, and nitrogenous base. And he knew that they were linked in a polymer, that they formed chains, these nucleotides. It had in other words, a polynucleotide structure. Okay? So that was known as well. Way back in 1919, published in the Journal of Biological Chemistry, a journal that still exists today. In 1950, we're getting closer to Watson and Crick now. Inspired by Avery McLeod McCarty's work, there was an Austrian biochemist named Erwin Chargaff. This is 1950. So we're at point number 3. Inspired by Avery, as I said, McLeod McCarty's paper that DNA is a genetic molecule, so he wanted to understand. He was really wanted to know more about this molecule. And it carried a text of life. He wanted to know what that text was. And so one of the first things he did was he wanted to know if DNA differed between species. So he began to extract DNA from different species and compare it, and we'll see what the results are. And those results are available to Watson and Crick. Okay. That's some of the important background information that Watson and Crick had. Now, Watson and Crick were not officially appointed to attack this very important problem. They did it on the side. Crick was in his 10th year as a graduate student at Cambridge University. When I was at Berkeley, there's always a few guys that are like there forever because they like school. They're not interested in getting out there and working, or they just can't get their act together. You're writing that thesis is like this big thing at the end of this tunnel. It's like, oh my God, I can't handle it. I'm not saying that was Crick, because Crick has been a world-class scientist for the rest of his life. The end of his career was at UC San Diego, studying the neural basis of consciousness. So he's had an outstanding career, but it took him a while to get through grad school. He was working in a protein crystallography lab at Cambridge, one of the pioneers of X-ray crystallography, where you make crystals of proteins. A crystal has repeating units, then you shine X-rays over it, they diffract around the crystal, they strike photographic film, and you develop the film, and the spots there allow you to measure distance between the atoms and help to uncover the three-dimensional structure. So Crick was pretty good at that, studying proteins. And as I said, Watson had just finished his PhD in Indiana, and his professor was glad he was across the ocean because he apparently was not very handy in the lab, apparently broke quite a bit of gear there. He's kind of a numbskull in a way. Later turned out to be kind of a jerk, actually. That's just what I've read. I've never met the guy. He's still alive here. He's a very old, much older than me, actually. But he shows up at Cambridge to study X-ray crystallography. And they became, as I said, drinking pals. The team that was actually, the English team that was actually designated to investigate the DNA structure in this goal of which a Nobel Prize was waiting, was a team in London. There's a place in London called King's College. In London, these guys are in Cambridge. Cambridge is about an hour and a half train ride north, okay, from London. King's College in London, there were 2 people in a lab in London that were assigned to this job to identify the 3D structure of DNA. It was Maurice Wilkins, who was an expert at crystallizing proteins. Of course, it's hard to get DNA to crystallize, but he was able to produce fibers. Okay, and then the idea was then to produce these DNA fibers and then take X-ray photographs of them. That was the method of the day, and it's still a very valuable method for determining the 3D structure of a biological molecule. Well, King's College recruited to their lab one of the best X-ray crystallographers at that time in Europe. She was English, but they brought her back home from France. She was Dr. Rosalind Franklin. Now this is the late 40s, early 50s, and it was believed, even among scientists, we think of scientists, liberal, forward thinkers, but even in the 1940s and 50s, a lot of older scientists thought women shouldn't be there. They shouldn't be scientists. In fact, at King's College in the faculty lounge, she was not allowed to go into the lounge. That's the kind of bullshit she had to face. So she apparently didn't take crap from anybody. She got in men's faces and gave it back, and so she was not well liked. She spoke up for herself. She defended herself as she should have. But she was recruited back to London to work with Maurice Wilkins because she was a really expert at X-ray crystallography. There was a problem though. When she showed up to London, he was out of town. She thought it was her project. He thought it was his project. The supervisor didn't make it clear, and so they instantly battled. It was bad blood from the get-go. And you know, she was a biochemist in a man's world, and she had to defend herself continually against sexist pigs. Okay. So these guys, Watson had gone down to London to see a seminar presented by her about her work on DNA. Just maybe you want to go to London and hang out. Who knows? Went to our seminar, came back and told Crick, man, I think we can figure this out. Let's do it. Let's do it on the side. So they started to tinker around. They had the metal shop build some nucleotides because the nucleotide structure had been known for more than 30 years prior. They began to build these and they started to play with them. Now they have no funding. They're doing this on the side. They actually, you know, he's still trying to finish a PhD project. He's on a postdoc. Their supervisor is not real fond of them wasting time because he thought that's what they were doing, wasting time. They actually, at one point, were warned to stop this or you're going to be fired. All right? Okay. There's the beautiful Dr. Franklin. Well, she took some amazing photographs. Now, this is a photograph of, this is her famous photograph 51. This is the DNA molecule fibers that's on end. You're looking at it on end. The X-rays are blasted onto it. In fact, this from your textbook, I just wanted to show you her face. Here's the same photograph. This is sort of the idea here. And I don't know how this is, I mean, this is way beyond me. This is, you've got to be really gifted in physical chemistry, which I never took because everybody told me this is the hardest class on the planet. And you've got to be really good at math, and I'm terrible at math. So I'm mathematically challenged. That's one of my challenges. But the idea is that you, originally it was to look at crystals, you know, look at the atomic structure of crystals, because crystals, again, as I said, are repeating units, and when you shine an X-ray over it, X-ray